glasses are fogging. They don't do this with this mask. Do you have a pen in your purse? No, a pen. You're writing. Okay. It's okay.
If we have any additional questions, we'll be handing it to you.
So I have more than enough.
Thank you, Juan. The clocks in this hall are fast, in case anybody wondered. Good evening and welcome to this Candidates Forum presented by the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland, Heintz Chapter, the Heintz Libraries, and Future Heintz. We're pleased you could all join us tonight. My name is Blanche Valancy and I am coordinator along with Betsy Tracy of this series of forums. I'm looking out on the space where 100 or more of you would be sitting at an ordinary forum, but we are not living in ordinary times. So I must be content to imagine that many or more citizens watching on the internet, and many more of you who will access this recording in the days ahead leading up to the November 2nd general election. The current public health crisis necessitated a change from the in-person format you've all come to expect over the years. Our thanks to the leadership and volunteers of the League, the support of Future Heintz, the Heintz Libraries, and especially to the City of Cleveland Heights for providing the space we are in this evening. Without their efforts, we would not be coming to you in this virtual format. Since 1920, the League of Women Voters has been a leader, empowering voters, defending democracy. The League does not endorse candidates or support political parties, although it does take positions on issues. The League encourages informed and active participation in government and works to influence public policy through study, education, and advocacy. During the election season, the League provides nonpartisan candidate information through voters' guides and candidate forums like this one. I would like to point out that the voters' guide for this election has just come out in the October Heintz Observer from our partners at Future Heintz. You can learn about our activities on our website, lwvgreatercleveland.org, and access voter information from vote411.org, a National League website with information on voting and candidates. The League has organizations at the national, state, and local levels to serve voters at all three levels. The Cleveland Heights University Heintz chapter is part of the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland and, of course, serves Cleveland Heights and University Heights. Individuals can join the League at the local level. Interested? Go to lwvgreatercleveland.org and hit the join button. When you join League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland, you can choose to affiliate with a chapter, such as the Heintz chapter. This membership automatically makes you a member of the Ohio and U.S. leagues. If you appreciate the services League provides to If you appreciate the services that League provides to voters during the election season, you can make a tax-deductible donation to the LWV Education Fund. That is where the funding for forums like tonight's and the Voters Guide comes from. Just go to the website, hit the donation button. It can be earmarked for our chapter, which we would greatly appreciate. Those funds would support voters' guides and forums all through the county and will make it possible for us to continue to stream and record them for home viewing. And now it is my great pleasure to turn the proceedings over to our moderator, Wendy During. She will explain the format and introduce the candidates. Thank you very much.
I'm also going to move this podium forward a bit so I can see everybody. Oh, it's on wheels. Oh. All right. Hello, everybody, and hello, everybody. I'm Wendy During, a member of the League of Women Voters, and I will be moderating our forum this evening. I would like to thank all of you for making a concerted effort to become fully informed voters for this local election, since local government has a major and direct impact on our daily lives. The League of Women Voters, a truly nonpartisan political organization, is recognized for its impartiality and respected role in promoting informed and active participation in government and advocating for good government policies. I would like to thank the many members of our league who have worked to put together and then revise the plans for this forum, and Michael Barron for coordinating the technical side of this evening. The recording of this forum will be made available on the LWVGC website's link to our YouTube channel. And finally, I would like to thank our candidates for being here and for agreeing to wear masks so that we could all meet in person. In the voter's guide, you will find not only the biographies of the candidates, but also their answers to 5 questions, which are regarding the strategic plan, the financial health of the district, the new community learning center at Noble Elementary, environmental considerations, and the properties that are not currently in use as schools. Because these questions have been asked and answered in the guide, we will not be asking them directly here this evening. This is a forum to hear from the 7 candidates who are seeking election to the Cleveland Heights University Heights Board of Education. There are 3 open seats on the 5-member board. This is a 4-year term. There is no salary, but there are payments for meetings attended. Before we begin tonight's forum, a review of the rules. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for an opening statement and 2 minutes for a closing statement after a question and answer period. Time limits will be enforced. Only written questions will be accepted. If you would like to submit a question for the candidates during the live forum, please send it via email to heintz@lwvgreatercleveland.org. The email box is being monitored this evening. League screeners will review the submitted questions, not to block opinions or skew the information, but in order to avoid duplication, provide a diversity of questions, and to ensure readability and appropriateness. To quote Thomas Jefferson, "Information is the currency of democracy. May you be made wealthy by your participation to this program." The order of speaking has been determined by drawing lots, and it will be reversed for the closing statements. First, we will hear from Jody Sorini.
I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and all who are working to make this forum happen. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to address you this evening. My name is Jody Sorini. I've served 2 years as president of the Board of Education and 1 year as vice president. I'm a 27-year resident of University Heights. I'm the only candidate running who has a child currently attending Cleveland Heights University Heights City Schools. I have a long history of being active in our schools, serving on district-wide committees as a KinderNet rep, as a PTA president, and I led the group that was successful in retaining a public elementary school in University Heights. One of the things I've learned during my time on the board is that as an individual, you have no decision-making authority. To get anything done, you have to work together. And that's why I'm proud of what we've accomplished. Together, this board represents proven leadership in advocacy, student achievement, and fiscal responsibility. We spearheaded statewide advocacy for fair school funding, which ultimately resulted in a better plan being passed in Columbus. We elevated equity to the forefront of decision-making. We're being recognized for district excellence in preschool, AP participation, our graduation rate, and the amount of college scholarships our children are earning. We achieved the first increase in district enrollment in more than a decade. We successfully completed a superintendent search guided by public input. And we've demonstrated fiscal responsibility. We completed the middle school's renovation project on time and under budget, returning $1 million to the district's permanent improvement plan. And we refinanced district-issued bonds to save our community $18.5 million in property taxes. We negotiated a fair and sustainable labor contract that saves taxpayers $1.5 million annually, which was approved by more than 94% of union members and is vital for the district's long-term financial viability. We've implemented more than $5 million in budget reductions during the last 3.5 years. We have a strong record of achievement while leading our schools during a pandemic, and that's why I ask for your vote.
Thank you. Our second candidate this evening is Maureen or Mo Lynn.
Hi. Thank you, Future Heights and the League of Women Voters for coordinating this event. I'd also like to thank the Community Center for hosting this event at the very last minute. My name is Maureen Lynn. Many simply know me as Mo. I moved here with my husband and our 3 children 10 years ago. I am seeking election for the Cleveland Heights University Heights School Board because I believe that our public schools and the students are essential for a strong, thriving, and successful community. I want to be part of the school board to ensure that the schools are exceptional for all children of all backgrounds and abilities. Every child deserves the opportunity to succeed, grow, and flourish. It's well known that the Cleveland Heights School District, University Heights School District, is very well funded, very generously by our taxpayers. We are paying the highest tax rate in the entire state of Ohio. Many in the community have been asking the school board and administrators to conduct a state performance audit. The last time the schools had this done was in 1999, and nearly $7 million in potential savings were identified. The audit is absolutely necessary to find the inefficiencies, overspending, fund mismanagement, with the ultimate goal to maximize the in-classroom spending that is student-centered. I will ensure that we get this audit conducted so that all money can be focused on the students and the community. Finally, strong schools need the support of a community who trusts the school board and know that the school board is transparent. Unfortunately, over the years, the overreaching administration and school board have undermined that support. I am asking for the community to vote for new voices, for a new vision and direction, for the betterment of the schools, and for all of the Cleveland Heights, University Heights residents.
Thank you, Ms. Lynn.
Thank you.
Third speaker is Mario Clopton-Zymler.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and to the Cleveland Heights. I should have a mic. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and the Cleveland Heights Rec Center for hosting us this evening. My name is Mario Clopton-Zymler, and I am asking for your vote for Cleveland Heights University Heights Board of Education. My professional and lived experience is unlike any other Board of Education candidate currently serving or running as a candidate. I am prepared today to make meaningful contributions to the work of overseeing the instructional and operational goals of our school district. My perspective and experience includes over a decade of public school classroom teaching, as well as school principal experience, doctoral level research, and understanding of education policy, leadership, finance, and equity. My experience includes working to bring community and government together, to tackle tough issues, pushing against the status quo, while also maintaining working relationships with those with whom I disagree. I care for our students, and as a Black man, have shared many of the lived experience of the 71% population of our schools who identify as Black. As all 7 candidates sit here, there's a myriad and breadth of experience and opinions, and I look forward to working with 2 others when I'm elected to restore trust, increase transparency, and protect honesty in education. This includes answering the community's call for an independent third-party fiscal performance audit, advocating for equitable access to arts education, insisting upon greater accountability for the implementation of our education equity policy, and working to make Cleveland Heights University Heights schools the first choice school district for parents in our region. I look forward to listening to you and to answering your questions in the hopes that at the end of this meeting, that you may see it in yourself to recognize the need for more qualified Black representation on the Board of Education and make me your first vote before anyone else this November 2nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clopton-Zymler. And next up is Charles Drake.
Thank you. I want to thank the Future Heights and the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland, the CHUH chapter, for this opportunity. I am Charles Drake. I am a graduate of Cleveland Heights High School and have lived in Cleveland Heights for almost 50 years. I am married for 35 years on an annual renewable contract. We raised my 3 daughters from my previous marriage and our daughter. 2 of my daughters graduated from this high school. I am a former CP, certified public accountant, commercial banker, assistant administrative and audit manager for a multi-employer union welfare pension plan. I currently consult on federal and international tax issues. I sit on the finance committee of a group of community schools operating in Cuyahoga and Lorain counties. These schools are audited by the Auditor of State annually. They serve 4,500 plus students. I am not compensated. I volunteer at my church's food bank and work for the Board of Elections on election day and night. I am running for this position because I believe the board should be transparent in all activity, including open checkbook provided by the State of Ohio Treasurer. I want the Ohio Auditor of State to conduct a performance audit of the managerial, operational, and deployment of all assets this entity possesses. Over 2,000 of our fellow citizens have signed online petition requesting such. But the current board stated one was done over 25 years ago. Another one is not necessary. I pledge we must prepare all our students to survive and strive in the 21st century. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. Going now to Dan Heintz.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for bringing us together this evening. Thank you also to the City of Cleveland Heights for making this room available on short notice. And also thank you to the Heights Libraries for planning to host us this evening. My name is Dan Heintz, and for the past 4 years, I have served with Malia Lewis and Jody Sorini on your Board of Education. I am a lifelong Cleveland Heights resident. My wife and I are both products of our public schools, and my son graduated this past May. Before being elected, I served on the Citizens Advisory Committee, the Parks and Recreation Committee, and I had the honor of serving on the library's Board of Directors for the Friends of the Heights Library. Over the past few years, I have been able to take my public service and shift my advocacy into a new level. I have testified in Columbus in front of the Ohio legislature on issues related to high-stakes testing and school funding. And I think that it's fair to say that I have led the efforts in the fight against vouchers for our school district. For those of you who don't know, Cleveland Heights University Heights was the first district in the state to sign on as a plaintiff in the Vouchers Hurt Ohio lawsuit, which is challenging the constitutionality of Ohio's Ed Choice voucher program. The lawsuit now has more than 90 school districts and will be filed in the next few weeks. I am proud to serve as a member of the steering committee of the vouchers lawsuit. So thank you again, and I look forward to talking about the work that Jodi, Malia, and I have contributed to over the past few years on behalf of our students, our staff, and our taxpayers.
Thank you, Mr. Heintz. Next, Mr. Mordechai Rennert.
Good evening. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters and Future Heights for hosting this forum tonight, and especially the City of Cleveland Heights for making democracy thrive this evening. I'd also like to thank all my fellow candidates for being here with us. My name is Mordechai Rennert. I was born here, I grew up here, and I love this community. As a single parent and a business executive in the construction industry, I make difficult decisions daily. In 2020, I decided to move back home to this district to enjoy the support of my parents and siblings as we all navigated through the COVID-19 pandemic. My children and I have appreciated what this community offers, and we have chosen to stay here. So why am I running for school board? Well, because I believe in the responsibility of every citizen to use their experience and expertise to better their community in areas that need that attention. I believe that our Heights schools have a lot to offer prospective students and families. There are excellent teachers, good facilities, a beautiful new high school, 48 students recently recognized by the College Board for their outstanding performance in advanced placement classes. And the list goes on. As a member of the CHUH district, Tiger Nation can be proud. However, there is always room for improvement. Furthermore, when constructive criticism is offered, we cannot become defensive or dismissive. We as a community should always be open to looking for best practices, new ideas that can better educational outcomes, and look for efficiencies that reduce the necessity of increasing the tax burden on those that choose to live here. I am running with Charles Drake and Maureen Lynn, both to my right, because together I believe we can bring positive change, and specifically the positive change, to our schools that will benefit students, teachers, and the community in general. I want the school board election to be about our students and the issues. I want to talk with you, the voter, about working to improve special educational services, requesting a special education audit, working to ensure the equity and fairness for all of our district schools, and requesting an independent performance audit by the Ohio Auditor of State, and reducing unnecessary overhead to maximize classroom funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rennert. And our seventh candidate is Malia Lewis.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for all that you do to encourage engagement and participation in the democratic process. My name is Malia Lewis. My family moved to Cleveland Heights at the end of 2004, and I've been active in our public schools ever since. My involvement began with ECHO, which made sure the preschool programs maintained proper accreditation when they moved from Milliken to Garrity. I was part of PTA and PTA Council. I chaired the Career and Technical Education Working Group for several years. During my nearly 4 years on the school board, the needs of our 5,000 students have been my primary focus. With my colleagues Beverly Wright, Jim Posh, Dan Heintz, and Jody Sorini, I am proud to have conducted a superintendent search guided by public input and proud to have hired Superintendent Kirby. I am proud to have spearheaded statewide advocacy for fair school funding. I am proud that we have elevated equity to the forefront of all decision-making. I am proud of the recognition we have received for improved student performance from preschool to graduation. I am proud of our commitment to fiscal responsibility. I am proud of improving intergovernmental relations with the city councils of our host cities and the library board. I am proud of our ability to pivot multiple times during the course of this pandemic. And yet, there is more work to do. Equity is not a one and done. It must be at the heart of a continuous improvement cycle in order that our students' performance continues to improve. The Fair School Funding Plan won't benefit us until we get it included in 2 more biennial state budgets. We must continue to improve student performance and outcomes, especially after the educational disruption of the pandemic. We must expand our preschool capacity so that every kindergartner is prepared to succeed. And we must get back to the facilities work. That is why I am seeking a second term, so that I can continue the work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Turning now to the question and answer period. I remind the candidates to please stay within the allotted time period of 1 minute for each response and up to 30 seconds for follow-up responses. Given the number of candidates, we need to keep things moving along. Also, my intention in all forums is the first question I start with the first person and I work down the table. Second question, I start with the second person. When I mess this order up, as I invariably do, please just politely remind me and get me back on track. Well, usually whoever's up next knows that they're up next. For all the candidates, please discuss the mission, vision, and values of the Cleveland Heights University Heights School District and comment on whether you support these concepts. Starting with Ms. Lewis.
I haven't memorized the mission, vision, and values, but I was an active participant in the strategic plan refresh, during which we spent a lot of time working on fine-tuning the specific language of the mission vision. And it's not in here because this is the old version. Sorry. So our mission is, paraphrased, to educate every child in the district to the best of our ability. And our vision is to make sure that every student receives an excellent education with equitable resources and opportunities. And our values, there are 5 of them. And I'm sorry, I'm going to botch
That's
this. I can't pretend
Take a general
to know
statement.
it.
Pick a
But,
favorite value.
well, equity, excellence, I can't remember. I mean, you know,
Do you support these values or do you believe they should be altered in some way?
I definitely support these values. I sat in meetings with 20 or 30 people, and we hashed these out and discussed at great length why they matter to us.
Thank you. Mr. Heintz.
Thank you. Oops. You know, the mission, vision, and values of any organization is really about the day-to-day work. And we have spent the past year or so very intentionally doing a refresh of our strategic plan, which is sort of the call it maybe the formula for achieving the mission, vision, and values of the Heights schools. One of the things that we realized early on in this process is that the community is very happy with our strategic plan. And so a refresh was what was very important to them. When we brought in our new superintendent, Liz Kirby, she was very eager to get this work underway. It was a great opportunity for her to get to know the community, and this work has served very, very well for that. So I'm absolutely thrilled with the performance of our schools moving forward. It just takes any visit to our schools to see that the mission, vision, and values are being directed by our strategic plan.
Thank you. Ms. Sorini.
Thank you. I'm going to paraphrase the mission, vision, and values because it is rather long. I know it's a long paragraph, but it's basically that every child leaves our district prepared to succeed in college and career, and that every child receives an equitable education while they're in our district. And I support these values. I am supporting them in many ways. One of them is in our 5-year strategic plan, the 2026 plan, we've added what we call measures that matter. And I think that this is really important because this allows us to track our achievement of students, and we will be able to measure that and put that out for transparency for our community. We have a website that we will be having that dashboard up. And some of the things that you'll be able to see on that is how we're closing the achievement gap gap between our white students and our students of color, our students and our special ed students. We want to make sure that everyone is receiving the best education they possibly can. You're also going to see measures on that are around post-graduation success. So we can measure how our students are doing after they leave our schools, which is the true measure of success.
Thank you, Ms. Rainey. Mr. Rennert.
The question posed is more so to carry on the current school board's vision, mission, and values, which I don't agree with. So we're running for board to change some of that to benefit more people. The mission that we would believe in would be the excellence in education for all students in every school, whether or not those students come from an impoverished family or not, whether those students have an easy time learning or not, and whether or not those parents have a vehicle to be able to get their children to school or not. The vision going forward should be transparency and fiscal responsibility, with ensuring that our most vulnerable are taken care of. And our values should reflect the mission and vision and make sure that every individual, whether staff or student, shall be treated with equal dignity and respect.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis. Or Ms. Lynn.
So in regards to the mission, vision, and values, this is all about the student. And that's really what we need to be focused on. And like Mordechai said, I mean, every student need to be given the educational excellence that they deserve, regardless of their background or ability. The resources need to be provided. I did like to hear that Jody has something in place for them to measure how these students are performing, because that's really, we need to be able to gauge and know what's working and what's not working, and you need to show results, and you need to have some way to measure it, and keeping track, because it's all about giving the best opportunity for success for all of these students in the district, and that's every single student. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Drake.
Regarding the mission of vision and value, as the father of 4 daughters, all having different abilities and aptitudes, I believe that this district has to provide the opportunity for every student to achieve to the best of their ability. I believe it is the district's responsibility to emphasize the basic tools that the students need to survive in the 21st century. Science, technology, English, arithmetic, mathematics are the only way these children are going to survive in the 21st century. Thank you.
To answer the question of whether I agree with the mission, values, and vision of our school district, yes, I do. The source and the summit of everything that this Board of Education must do has to impact the lived experience and the success of our children. I will push back on the notion of not including arts education as a way to survive. I am by trade now a principal intern, but I am a music educator, and I have made a very good living for myself, and also a wealth of experience that arts can provide for our children. Arts is math, arts is science, arts are all of the things that we use as what people perceive as practical skills. As our core values, one of them are integrity, trust, and respect. And this is these are 3 core values that our current board must make amends for, and why I am seeking election is to rebuild the trust that has been lost within community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Heintz, the next question. What goals would you like to see the district achieve in the next 3 to 5 years? And what policies do you suggest will further the achievement of those goals?
Thank you for that question, actually, because we talk a lot about our goals moving forward. Our goals are sort of how we measure our success, our achievement towards those goals. When I think about the goals over the next few years, one of the goals that we've been talking a great deal about is getting the district back on a 5-year levy cycle. Ohio's funding, which is so heavy in local funds, is a really onerous system for our taxpayers. So we have worked very hard to make adjustments to our budget that will get us, we believe, on a 5-year levy cycle, especially if, it will require the legislature to live up to their promises in the next biennial budgets. But we also want to increase career and technical education. We also want to expand our high-quality pre-K programming, which is some of the best work that we do in the district. And we really also want to improve and extend the arts programming at the middle schools and the athletic programming at the middle schools.
Thank you, Mr. Heintz. Ms. Sorini.
Thank you for that question. I actually see that there's 2 components to the question. There's the big picture, and then there's our district itself. From the big picture, I think that the number one thing that the school board needs to be focused on is making sure that the Fair School Funding Plan gets passed in Columbus. It has to pass 2 more biennial budgets, because that is the key to this district being able to succeed with having the funding we need. From the level of our school district, what do I think that the big goals are? Number 1 is solving the achievement gap. This is one of the things that we've been focused on, and it was an area that we were starting to see great improvement in before the pandemic. So the number 2 goal is making sure that students are catching up. We know that there was a lot of learning loss during the pandemic, and that has exacerbated that achievement gap. And we need to get back on that exciting track that we were on, where we were closing that gap. we can be the very best majority minority school district in this country. We are on that track and we need to get back there. And then the third thing that, the other thing that Dan mentioned is making sure that we stretch that levy cycle, 5 years or more.
Mr. Rennert.
Thank you for the question. The goals to achieve for the next 5 years. Well, the first thing I would respond to my opponent is no more levies, not on a 5-year cycle, not on a 10-year cycle, no more. Stop the wasteful spending. We can create an absolutely stable budget with the current funding, probably with lower levels of funding. Enough with the levies. What I would like to hear from my opponents is how they actually would be interested in making sure the special education programs are facilitated in a way and funded in a way that all children are receiving those exact legal required services in every school they're at. Let's talk about vouchers for a second. Vouchers were specifically created to address the gap of school districts that were failing. So Cleveland Heights, University Heights has a voucher program that was started because they were failing. Now we're not failing anymore.
Thank you. Again, as far as goals, this is about students. So educational excellence and improving the achievement and success of every single student. We need to get back up there and be recognized as one of the best schools in Ohio. We need to be able to figure out how we maximize the spending in the classroom, not in the administrative level, which is so top heavy. So we need to pare that down and make sure that we're actually putting the money into the classroom as necessary. And I think we need to look at balancing the budget, and we need to look at this performance audit. You can't talk about another levy without having a performance audit conducted to find the cost savings. The community is tired to hear of taxes after taxes after taxes. They want to find some real solutions, and it's bringing a third party to find those solutions before we go back to the community for more money.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I want to see in the goal of the 3 to 5 year plan, I want to see efficient use of all assets, including disposing of those physical properties that are not currently being used to educating our students, such as the Milliken property and possibly the Wiley facility. I also want to see the use of the $17 million in COVID federal funds we received. I want to identify the hardest hit and adversely affected students to receive the resources they need, including necessary transportation. Immediately create a captive substitute pool so that when a teacher calls out ill or for personal reasons, there is a substitute ready to take that position and not have to have an administrator or someone that is, although licensed, not qualified to, in that area, take over the classroom. Thank you.
Mr. Clopton-Zymler.
As an educator, and as an administrator now, I am experiencing in real time what it is like to teach and to lead in an education institution in a pandemic world. And one of the assets that I am going to bring to the school board is real instructional leadership and teaching experience. How will we know if we are meeting the mark if we don't have more people on the board who have actually lived and understand the pedagogy and the systems that we use to improve achievement? One of the issues that I have with our strategic planning and our goals is that it does center on achievement gaps. A lot of research notes that the achievement gap is more of an indicator of wealth and not necessarily of the outcomes of education. And so I have an issue as a doctoral scholar that we put so much emphasis on the achievement gap. And this is just one of the examples of the lack of imagination that exists because there aren't enough educators on the school board. I intend to fix that.
Ms. Lewis.
So my goals for the next 3 to 5 years are already are similar to what I mentioned in my opening remarks. I want to see improved outcomes for all of our students post-graduation. And we know that in order to improve outcomes, we need to decrease the achievement gaps between our African American students and our white students, between our English language learners and our native English speakers, between our special education students and our regular education population. So the new strategic plan with benchmarks and real measures that matter will help us monitor what's going on so that we can figure out how to improve everybody's outcomes. And part of doing that is also to recover from the COVID disruption, because there's no question that all of our students have suffered. Some of our students have suffered more than others, and everybody needs to be given what they need to come back from that. And our first year of summer Tiger Camp was a huge,
Thank you very much. Ms. For 30 seconds, yes.
So Mr. Rennert just said a couple things that I found sort of interesting and that I think we need to hear more about. Mr. Rennert said that he wants absolutely no more levies in a state which funds its schools majority through levies, and then also said that he wants to know how we're going to continue to fund improved special ed services with no more levies. So, Mr. Rennert, I'd like to hear about your testimony in Columbus this past summer. I'd like to hear about how many times you went down, how many times you submitted testimony, and I mean here in Ohio. So I'm eager to hear this.
Thank you, Mr. Heintz, and I think I'll answer that question easily. Among many other accusations that have been thrown at me, that as well is false. I have never been to Columbus to testify. I'm not sure where you heard that I was. That being said, let's get to the monies. I would defer to my colleagues here, but let's specifically go to where you're spending the money now. So just a few weeks ago, you spent over $300,000 on a parking lot for one of the facilities, which is unused. And the response from your business administrator was that we store paper towel, toilet paper, and other paper products there.
We do have 2 questions later on finances, so you could probably pick up. Ms. Sorini, what skills do you think are most important for the Heights students to graduate with? And do you think these students are graduating with these skills?
Thank you for that question. I think the most important skills for children to graduate with are critical thinking skills. You have to be able to communicate. Those are, two skills that I think are very important for success in our global world. If we want to get down to specifics, I admit I am a STEM person, science, technology, engineering, and math. I would like to see us do more of that in our schools. I think that those are the high-paying jobs of the future, and that's why I'm also a big proponent not only of college, but also of our career technical program. And often it's interesting that career technical program leads to additional schooling in college. And I think that is where our children can really succeed. And that's why I am a strong proponent of science, technology, engineering, and math.
Thank you. Mr. Rennert.
Can you please repeat the question?
What skills do you think are most important for Heights students to graduate with? And do you think the Heights students are graduating with these skills?
I think overwhelmingly, the most important thing that any student needs to graduate from any school is the ability to read, write, perform basic math so that they can be productive members of society. I think that I'd like to visit the rest of the question that I was posed with before with the rest of my time, which was how would we fund the special education? And I think that if we took the funding out of the waste that we see continuously, then we'd be able to do so. Quick example, $2 million in legal fees over 3 years. How many special education teachers and programs could be put in place with that money? I'm sure there are legitimate reasons for spending money with legal firms, but some of the firms that charge the highest fees are being used. Why? I don't have the answer. The bottom line is that there's an efficient way to spend money. Myself and my colleagues will be happy to do so and still provide the proper skills and education for the graduates.
Thank you. Ms. Lynn.
Well, first, by far, every single student needs to exceed just the simple proficiency levels of all the basic skills: reading, math, English, science. I too am a huge advocate of STEM. I think there's going to be such a need in our future for more science, technology, and math that we need to stay focused on that. I'm an engineer myself, and I recognize the need for it and the growing need. And I think we need to, have those students proficient in the science, technology, engineering, and math as well. And every child needs to be able to properly communicate with words and to be able to write, because that also is extremely important as they get into their careers and into their life skills. Thank you.
Mr. Drake.
Thank you. I believe in critical thinking is vastly important. I also believe a child should know how to balance a checkbook, either by paper or electronically. I am a firm believer in STEM learning. As I was growing up as a child, I was the oldest of 6 children. My mother, before she married my father, was a chemist on the Manhattan Project in World War II and instructed us on the importance of science. So I have lived with science for a long time, and I believe it is important to survive in this current century. Civics is also an important part that our students need to be taught. They have to know how our government works, what works, and not to just be led by the media as they get a one-sided view of what's going on. Thank you.
As far as what I think what skills are important for our students to graduate with, good written, typing, communication skills are necessary. The ability to be agile and adaptable is especially important, but also curiosity and imagination. Our children are not animatons. Math and science do not necessarily mean not curiosity or imagination, but we squeeze out our children's desire to learn and to imagine and to create, and that is one of the most human things that we do, and they should be able to know how to do that effectively. Critical thinking is important. And also, I think as older people, with due respect, we need to stop guessing what our students need and start actually listening to what they think their skills are that they need, because it's their education and it's their life that they're going to be living. The world that we grew up in is not the world that they're going to see, and they are more aware of the skills that they're going to need than we are. So we need to listen to our students.
Thank you. Ms. Lewis.
The job of our schools is to the goal of our schools is to produce students who are able to live productive, self-sufficient lives and become engaged citizens in their world. And that requires them to be employable. And what do employers want? They want people who can think on their feet, be adaptable, resilient, who are able to work well with others in groups, and who can learn new skills on the job, because the world of work is constantly evolving. And as Mr. Clopton-Zymler said, the world that they are going to be living in is different than the world we are in now. So critical thinking, working in groups, ability to work with others with whom they may or may not have things in common. And Cleveland Heights does that very well.
Mr. Heintz.
So it's a great question. I love that it's a sort of an aspirational question. The words that I have written down in front of me are adaptability, communication, and then I have empathy circled, and reading underlined. So I really think that the past few years, one thing that we have learned is our desperate need for more empathy. And we as a district, I think, do a pretty darn good job of that. It's something that we've gotten better at generation by generation. But I also think that reading, when you talk just about a school skill, reading is, to me, the most important. It's the front door to everything. And to be honest with you, I think we need to improve. By the time our kids graduate, they're better, but if we did better with the reading, a lot of that has to do with the platform. we will do better by them in the future.
Mr. Rennert, are you satisfied that the Fair School Funding Plan adopted this past summer by the Ohio General Assembly will be adequate and fair for supporting the Cleveland Heights University Heights schools? Please explain.
I appreciate the question. I believe that the current funding, along with any further funding, will absolutely be able to maintain the level of services that the school district currently has. However, if the continued wasteful spending is continued in the same way it is today, then there isn't an amount of funding that could ever accomplish the feat that you ask. I think, again, if we take it back to the basics, just like when we go to reading and writing, the basics, all we have to do is be efficient with our money and put it in an appropriate fashion to the places that it belongs. And we should be listening to those people who are begging the school district to assist them with their special education children. And for those people that need extra help getting to other programs and they need extra busing for, things of that nature. But we do have enough funding as it stands. We have enough properties that we can take a look at, just like this board relieved themselves of 2 of them. One of them they sold for $1, and 4 lots they sold for $10 a piece. So I look forward to the continued discussion.
Thank you. Ms. Lynn.
Thank you. While no legislation is perfect, I think the fair school funding is definitely in the right track. It addresses the issue that the school board and the administrators have been having as far as with all the vouchers. Now with this new bill, the vouchers are now going to be directly funded from the state. It will no longer be funneled through the schools, and that's exactly what they wanted. So that part of it is definitely good. I mean, I think it's on the right track. You have to understand that there are a lot of children in this state that not a public school is not a perfect fit for them. Either they were bullied somewhere or they're not getting the education they need. And the state is recognizing that those children still need to be educated, and maybe the public school isn't the solution for them. So let's think about every child, because every child needs to have a proper education. And the state funding gives some of those families enough funding to maybe make a decision that is best for their family.
House Bill HB 110 did give a partial solution to the funding problem, and hopefully over the next 2 biennials, it will be successful. But as a 10-year plus member of a charter school finance committee, I learned that you can do just as much with less than the public schools do. The schools I worked with are public schools. We do have students. Most of our students came from what we would call a disadvantaged family, and we got them to achieve. Our grades were very high. I did graduate from Heights High. I am pro-public education. We have to make our children our #1 goal.
No, I am not satisfied with the fair school funding answer that the state came up with this summer. For one, the state has used in past years our local tax dollars to fund their voucher program, and I want my money back. I want our money back. That is first. 2, they need to fully fund public schools. They have a constitutional requirement to do so, and they need to stop abdicating their responsibility. 2, 3, I suppose, vouchers are exempt from any of the caps and reductions that the state schools, that the public schools currently get. Vouchers receive 100% of their funding, while all the public schools have caps and reductions. There's just so many other things that need to happen in order for us to get to the dollar amount that public schools should receive. And so I'm not interested in any more watered down ideas. I'm interested in action, because that is what our public schools need, and that is what our children need.
Like Mr. Clopton-Zymler, I am not satisfied with what was passed in the current biennial budget. It is only a very small and watered down version of the Fair School Funding Plan. The bulk of the changes in that plan would not actually be funded until years 5 and 6, which means that we have to lobby in Columbus to pass it again and again in order to see that help public schools throughout the state. And Ohio education funding, as we know, is overly dependent on local real estate taxes to make up the difference between the amount of money that it takes to educate a child and the amount of money that the state provides. So the total amount of money that the state provides for public education remains the same with the current change in the funding model. So they're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and the voucher amounts have been increased by 25% this year over last year, whereas the amount of funding for public school students has not increased 25%. So again, the state is robbing Peter to pay Paul.
So the Fair School Funding Program, our Republican legislature changed everything in that bill except the name. It is not a fair school funding program, certainly not for Ohio's public school children. Vouchers still siphon hundreds of millions of Ohio tax dollars off, despite the Ohio Constitution's insistence that they not. And the funding that this year we have is basically the same as the funding from last year after the deduct. So no, this school funding program is absolutely not satisfactory, but this legislature will not change it, which is why we are focused on the judicial branch at this point with the lawsuit to settle it once and for all, and to insist that the vouchers no longer be paid out of the state funds.
So my answer to this question is if, and this is a big if the plan is fully adopted, which means it passes 2 additional biennial budgets, then it is a step in the right direction. However, it's still not the full solution. And why is it not the full solution? Because it is funneling public money to private entities that are not subject to public records requests and have zero transparency. And that is a concern for me, especially as we have people running for the school board because they think that we need more transparency. And yet this funding model provides more money to organizations that have zero transparency. The original Fair School Funding bill, not the one that was passed, but the original one, was based on how much money it actually costs to educate a child. And that's what I think we need to get back to. That's the model that eventually our state needs to adopt. What does it cost to actually educate a child, and funding education from that standpoint?
Okay, 30 seconds.
Simple question. I respect everybody's opinion. How much is enough to? I apologize. Thank you. I respect everyone's opinion, so I'm happy to learn. How much, in your opinions, is enough per student to spend?
Thank you.
And can I just, and to clarify that, so the Cleveland Heights University School District receives $24,400 in revenue per student. Similar districts receive less than $17,000, and the state average is less than $15,000.
And I would like to state that for the state, their administrative costs for this district, the average administrative salary is over $116,000. The average for the state for a similar district is $98,000, and the state average is $85,000. Our treasurer is making almost $250,000 in salary. That is not acceptable.
All right.
For me, this is a both and. One, we do need to make sure that the state is held accountable for its required need to fairly fund public schools, And also, we need to make sure that we are being 100% transparent with how we are spending our money. We need to do the independent third-party performance audit. We need to do the Ohio checkbook. It's free and it's something that can easily be used to show people that we're serious about being accountable to our work. We need to do an audit of administrative positions just so that we can know what each position does. So if
Thank you.
the superintendent needs it, we can fight for it. But other than that,
Thank
we
you.
need to make sure that we're holding ourselves accountable here too.
Thank you. Did you want to speak?
So with this current system, as it is in the current biennial budget, 25% of the education funds from the state of Ohio are being sent to educate private school students. Private school students make up about 10% of Ohio's children. So we're sending, with this budget, 25% of the education funds to educate just 10% of Ohio's children. So when you flip that upside down, that leaves 75% of the budget to educate 90% of Ohio's children, and that is fundamentally wrong.
We need to move on.
I have a follow-up. Well,
We
I
need
think
to move on. There are additional
We didn't solve the
questions.
issue, ma'am, and I would like to know how much, answer my question of how much does this current board believe should be spent per capita, per child, if you will, when we're almost double the state level at this point?
Ignatius charges $24,000. I don't know how much the school in New York that's looking for your tuition payments charged each year, but I bet it was more than we're getting from the state of Ohio.
We need to move on, please.
No, we
We
can't. We
need to
can't do
move
that.
on. It is a matter of opinion on how much is valid.
No, ma'am.
And
You just
I'm
made
sorry,
an
Mr.
accusation
Rennert.
on my person. Ma'am,
Mr.
he
Rennert,
just
we
made
need to
an
move on.
accusation on my person, so I'd like to
The
respond.
next question is from Ms. Lynn. What are your thoughts about the Ohio State Auditor's school district performance audits? The school district performance audits.
Right, you asked the perfect person. So I'm a huge advocate of the school performance audits because they bring in a team of experts. They've done over 80 different schools, so they've come in with a lot of expertise that they can come in and they can look at every operational efficiencies. They can look at the administrative costs, the healthcare costs, just all aspects of what makes up a school district, and really try to figure out, are we maximizing the funding we're getting to the best possible levels? And again, it goes back to the student. I want to make sure that we are maximizing the amount of money we get. When the school district gets a lot of money, we are very generous residents and taxpayers to this school district. So I just want to make sure that we are maximizing the amount of money spent in the classroom for the student. The money that we as taxpayers give to the schools needs to be focused on the student. Let's get a performance audit done and make sure that that's happening. Thank you.
I am also a proponent of the performance audit. One of the things the performance audit will probably find is that the administrators get their, I don't know how much the public knows about the state teachers' retirement system and the state employees' retirement system. The board has contracts with their administrators, and there is a side agreement through an association that the board is picking up the 10% that the employee should pay into their retirement system, the board picks up. That is like, as a private employer, and as a private employee, your employer picking up your contribution to Social Security. Just with the 20 people that I found in last year, it would save us over $500,000 a year. In a 5-year budget, that's $2.5 million that could be used for our students. Thank you.
I am for an independent third-party performance audit. One, because it's fiscally responsible, and two, because our residents have asked for it. And to rebuild trust, we have to acknowledge things that the public wants that we can accommodate. I think a third party that's independent will find some savings that we can use authentically. I think the state performance audit will find things that we can reduce costs with, but they'll be like pay to play for football. And that's not a value of our school district. We want all of our students to be able to participate. And so I do think there is a middle ground that needs to be seen and done here. And third-party performance audit is one thing. I think ultimately it's most important that the district currently lacks the tools and the competency sometimes to do useful cost analysis to decide decision-making. And that's something in our due diligence that we need to improve.
Ms. Lewis.
The state auditors' school performance audits follow a predictable pattern where they compare any one district to the averages of what they consider to be comparable districts, and then they suggest cuts to bring you back down to what that average would be. This is called regression to the mean. Our district wants and has elected to pay for things that are above the state minimums. We do not want to regress to the mean. We pay for art, we pay for music, we pay to provide sports and extracurriculars to all of our students without charging them for that privilege. So the outcome of a performance audit is highly predictable. It means coming back down to providing only what is required by the state and cutting all of the things that make Cleveland Heights University Heights City Schools such a special place.
Thank you.
You know, we looked at performance audits in a great deal of detail, actually, over the past few years. And what we've discovered is, as Malia mentioned, that they are incredibly predictable and they're not free. What we discovered is that they tell you to do things like reduce the number of teachers, which increases the class size. They tell you to do less busing because we bus more kids than the state insists that we bus. They tell you to eliminate courses that are not required by the state. But those are some of the courses that bring out the most, that bring out the richness of what the world has to offer our students and some of the best work that we do. Some of the advanced placement courses, some of the reasons why the class of 2021 pulled in $14 million of scholarship offers in the middle of a pandemic. So, you know, these are the things that cost money.
It's important to note that 80% of a district's costs are people costs. So that's wages, salaries, benefits, and only 20% are operational costs. Performance audits are generally done when a school district is in extreme financial distress, and it's done in order to identify all the ways that a district can cut costs. Typically, the performance audit provides predictable recommendations to reduce operations to the state minimum requirements with no analysis on how those cuts will impact educational outcomes or student outcomes or student experiences. Make no mistake, calling for a performance audit under the guise of achieving operational efficiency is directly out of the playbook for those who want to defund public education. Performance audits typically recommend cutting staff, resulting in larger class sizes, reducing staff salaries and benefits, eliminating educational programs for students such as music, the arts, sports, and advanced placement classes, and cutting transportation to the state minimum requirements. And I got this information when I spoke with Talawanda School District, which was the only district that actually requested a performance audit, and afterwards they were sorry they did.
Thank you for the question. Extreme financial distress. $26,000 per student is extreme financial distress. We stand here and request transparency. There are 4 people on the side of this table here that have just stated to the incumbents that you're not being transparent, you're not being fiscally responsive. And there are multitudes of you out there that have requested, both in writing, in person, many different times, to get this performance audit. And what do we hear? You don't need it because they know better. Well, I don't believe that, and we don't believe that. We believe that you know better and that you need to be listened to. So we look forward to hearing from you and taking your advice and making our schools perform even better with less financial expenditures so that you can have more of your own money in your pocket from your taxes in the highest taxed school district in the state.
Thank you. Mr. Drake, what actions, if any, do you support to enhance collaboration and support between the school district and the cities of Cleveland Heights, University Heights, and South Euclid?
I believe that the three cities that are part of this school district are an important part to enhance the value of the homes and the education and attract citizens to want to live here. I've lived in this community for almost 50 years. My parents moved here when I was a senior in high school from the East Coast and chose Cleveland Heights because of its excellent public school system. I have raised 4 children. A comment was made that I may be the oldest member on this board. My youngest child is doing an MD, PhD in Chicago. I am current with what's going on in the world. I want to see this board bring their costs down so this is an attractive community for young families to bring their children and know they're going to get a quality education. Thank you.
I like the idea, and I would advocate for the city, government, council, our future mayor, and the school board to make permanent the quarterly meetings that they currently do. On top of that, there's been talk of a council committee that focuses on schools. I think also we need to be more innovative about how we engage with the community as governmental entities. One example that we have is I believe South Euclid does something like a real estate night, right? A realtor night where realtors come in, and I feel like I've heard we've done this in the past. Realtors come in and hear about the schools, and we give up-to-date information so that when people come in and they're looking for information about our schools, they're up to date and we can continue selling what's great about our community. But those are things that can build capacity if we figure out ways to connect government entities together.
Ms. Lewis.
On a side note, I moved from Chicago to Cleveland Heights specifically to send my 2 children to public school here. The quarterly meetings which we reestablished between the school district and our 3 host cities and our library board have proven to be very fruitful. They have changed the dynamic between city government and public school district. We've obviously been put on hiatus by the pandemic, but we're planning the next one. The city of Cleveland Heights used to have a housing department, a housing office, sorry, which provided information for people moving here and provided information about the public schools. We have an ambassadors program to invite people who are interested in learning about the schools to come and tour any building they're interested in, and they can sit in on classes and see what it's like and imagine their child there. All of these sorts of things have been going on for a while. Obviously, they've been put on hold, but we will be coming back to them as soon as we can.
This is a really exciting topic. When we joined the board about 4 years ago, the quarterly meetings hadn't been taking place regularly at all. And it was a goal of all of ours, along with Jim Posh and Beverly Wright, to reestablish those meetings and to rebuild the relationships. Since then, we have extended this. We've used those relationships. We've invited University Heights in because their building isn't ADA compliant. And so they've been holding their council meetings in our facilities for the past couple of years. They've now more or less moved into the old library at Wiley, which is fantastic. You know, our shared taxpayers have paid for these facilities. And so the more use that our taxpayers can get from them, the better. The way that I like to think of it is what's good for Cleveland Heights is good for University Heights. What's good for University Heights is good for the schools. What's good for all of us is good for the libraries. We're not islands. We are together.
One of the keys to improving any relationship is communication, and this board has reinstituted the meetings with the city government and the library board, as we talked about. And also, in addition, I've been to several South Euclid City Council meetings to update that chamber, because they're also a host government to us, on the workings of the board. In addition, I am in frequent communication with Mayor Michael Dillon Brennan in University Heights, as well as with Vice Mayor Michelle Weiss. We talk on the phone a lot. If we're not talking on the phone, we'll grab coffee together. And it's during these informal meetings where we've been most successful in discussing issues and identifying ways that we can work together. You know, so for example, the University Heights is using school facilities to hold their meetings, so they're ADA compliant. And in addition, I did participate with University Heights on a Realtor Day to help educate our realtors to make sure that they had the latest information about our schools and were ready to talk up our community when they're showing housing to prospective buyers.
Thank you again for that question. So let's break this down. There are 3 cities that are involved in the district: Cleveland Heights, University Heights, and South Euclid. Let's clarify a couple things. Facts. Facts are always good. Cleveland Heights offered this school board an ability to help them rid themselves of a vacant property. Not only did this board say no thank you, the board said no thank you to many, many hundreds of thousands, if not $1 million offer on that vacant property. The University Heights mayoral candidate and council forum was asked the question by the League of Women Voters Forum, and almost every single one of them had the same problem about the expenditures and the high taxes that are as a result of the expenditures of this current board. The only one that did not have a problem was given a 30-minute speech time this past Tuesday. And one more important thing, the library board is appointed by the school board. They are not a separate entity.
Can I ask a question on that?
Please let Ms. Lynn answer.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, I mean, we're all one community. That's the reality. You've got the school district, you've got the city, you've got city councils. Now we're going to have 2 mayors. I mean, that's really, it's imperative that we all work together. We're all in this to make this community better, stronger, and more vibrant. Unfortunately, when the census just came out, this district lost over 5% of our community. People are leaving, unfortunately. We need to turn that around. We need to figure out how we attract more young families, get them to come here, make them see the schools, come visit the schools, make the schools better, and attract more people so we can grow this community to make it as one of the best communities it can possibly be in Ohio. Thank you.
Looking at the clock, we only have time for one more question and then the closing statements. You might want to address your follow-up comments in your closing statement.
It's okay. I don't know what he's talking about, $1 million offer or something.
I understand.
We never got.
All right, Mr. Clopton-Zymler, final question. What is your opinion on the school voucher program?
Sorry, say it again.
What is your opinion on the school vouchers program?
This is a conversation that requires nuance for our community, because the reality is that we have people, our neighbors, our walking buddies, people we go to church to, the synagogue with, the people that we celebrate with, who use vouchers here. And there is a community here, a Jewish community that utilizes vouchers heavily. And while we are doing big proponent support of public education, there has been times where that community has been targeted, and we as public school supporters should not participate in the further marginalization of a people where Jewish education is a part of the survival of a people. At the same time, our fight is not with our neighbors. Our fight is with the state. The state has to own up to its responsibility to fund our schools fairly, so that we as a community can work to bridge divisions, celebrate education in all of its forms, public, private that exists here. These
Thank you.
institutions are a part of our community, and we need to work together to bridge
Thank you,
those
Mr.
gaps.
Clopton-Zymler. Ms. Allen, Ms. Lewis.
Well, I agree with Mr. Clopton-Zymler that the voucher problem is not, the voucher program is not the problem. The problem is the way it is funded. As I mentioned earlier, the total amount of money that the state puts towards education is a fixed pot of money. And if some of that money is taken away for vouchers, that means there's less money left for public schools. What the state needs to do is fund its vouchers from a separate pot that doesn't affect the 611 or 608, depending on who's counting, public school districts in the state of Ohio. So by all means, fund the vouchers in a way that does not affect public education. And if you want to take a voucher for your child, by all means do, but it needs to not affect the local school district that you live in.
I'm not a big fan of vouchers. I think that public tax dollars should be used for the public good. And this is really based on my life experience growing up here in Cleveland Heights, University Heights. Vouchers, remember, have only been around for around 10 years. And before that, those of us who have been here for a few minutes can remember huge variety of private schools flourishing before vouchers. Today, what has happened is that vouchers have monetized our children, and that didn't happen before. So the problem is not the voucher users. If somebody gives me a $7,500 coupon, I'm likely to use it. I completely understand that. But the problem is the monetization of children, driving wedges between areas of the community.
My position on vouchers, and the one I have advocated for in Columbus, is for vouchers to be funded directly by the state, because the deduction method of funding was very divisive for our community. And you can read my testimony on House Bill 305, and you can watch my testimony on House Bill 9 if you want to see my statement on that. While direct funding was included in this biennial budget, we need to ensure that direct funding remains in the next two biennial budgets and that the Fair School funding plan is fully implemented. Otherwise, this creates a lot of uncertainty for our community, for everyone who lives in our community. And I'd just like to state that while Fair School funding needs to pass two biennial budgets, in this current year, we are still losing 45% of the state funding we should be receiving because we're receiving the same amount of money that we were receiving under the deduct method.
Thank you for the question. I'm sure you saw me playing here with my phone. I was doing some small, quick calculations. So CHUH gets a total of approximately $21 million from the state funding. That boils down to, with the current enrollment, $4,120 per student. Right now, this school district is spending, according to the CUP report, $24,400 per student. However, with a total revenue of $130 million, which is coming from you and us and them, from our taxes, that actually equates to $26,000 per student. We went through this evening, and we know that the state funding is the same wherever it goes, per capita, however it works. But the average price per student, if you will, is, or the cost per student, is below even the $20,000 per student that it would take if you got rid of the entire state funding. So like Mario said, this is an issue that is completely demonizing specific cultures and communities in our community.
Thank you.
And it needs to stop.
Yeah, I mean, I think way too much emphasis is put on state funding. Again, we live in an extremely generous community. We give a lot of tax dollars to this community, and it boils my blood when this board complains about not having enough money because of the state. Every school across the state is funded the same way, so we're not in our own little boat over here. So we get a lot of money. We get $24,000 in revenue, and we're only getting $4,000 of that is from the state. Even if you took out every penny of state money, we would have $20 million per student. Similar districts are 17 million. The state average is 15 million. So we have a lot of money. We're very generous. And again, we have to recognize these students taking the vouchers, their parents pay taxes. They pay taxes, they pay local taxes, they pay property taxes, they pay state taxes. And if it's not working for that child in this public school, why should we abuse that child and not let that child have the right education that he or she deserves by the parent's choice?
Thank you. My opinion on vouchers is it's the state's obligation to educate the child, not to fund the overpaid administrators of a district. My wife and I made decisions based on the best needs for our children to where to have them educated. We did not receive vouchers, but we also did not take vacations or buy new cars so we could educate our children to the best of our ability when we felt that the current public system, unfortunately, was not providing what we deemed was in the best interest of our child. Thank you.
Thank you. This concludes the question. This concludes the question and answer period. Each candidate will now have 2 minutes for a closing statement. Going in, I believe so. That's the timing we laid out, 2 minutes. 1 minute. 1 minute then. Sorry. We're working in reverse order, starting with Malia Lewis.
Okay. First, an aside, the 21 million from the state of Ohio, which Mr. Rennert referenced, is a wrong number. That was the gross receipts last fiscal year, before the deductions for all the vouchers. The net was $7 million, and that $7 million is our new state funding this current year. Now, back to my prepared remarks. I am asking to serve a second term because this board works well together. We have accomplished much to improve our schools in the last 4 years, yet there is more work to do. I especially want to continue to improve our career and technical education programs. We need to ensure that all CTE students earn the credits and credentials available to them, and we must offer the right programs for our student body and our local economy. High-quality early childhood education is the single most important determinant for future academic success. Our preschool classes all have a 5-star rating, but we have limited funding and capacity. It will take some time and some hard work to grow our preschool program so that more children benefit from this valuable preparation for kindergarten. Please vote for Malia Lewis for CHUH Board of Education. Thank you.
Second up is Mr. Rennert.
Thank you very much again for hosting this forum. Thank you very much for hosting this forum and for allowing all the candidates to be here. It is a wonderful ability to speak with people that we wouldn't necessarily be able to speak with this many people in such a short time. That being said, facts matter, and we will post the actual numbers and the paperwork from the state and from this board up on our website so that people can actually see the facts. Thank you very much for watching. I hope that you will reach out to us and give us your best questions, and we'll continue to answer them. I believe and agree with Reaching Heights' belief posted on their website that reads, public schools belong to all of us and they benefit all of us. If you live, work, or own a business within CHUH school district, your taxes or your rent, fund our public schools, which makes you a Heights Tiger. No matter where you send your children to school, or if you have no children, you are a Heights Tiger. As a Heights Tiger, you're an investor in our public school. I'm a proud Heights Tiger. As I said earlier, I want to focus on improving the special education services, requesting a special education audit, working to ensure equity and fairness for all of our district schools, requesting an independent performance audit by the Ohio Auditor of State, and reducing unnecessary overhead to maximize classroom funding. Let's work together to make our schools and community more united, stronger, and better. My name is Mordechai Rennert. I'm running with Maureen and Chuck Drake, and we are asking for your vote. Thank you very much, and please visit us at New Voices, the number 4,
Our third statement
chuh.com. Thank you.
is from Dan Heintz.
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters for this evening's event. Thank you again to the City of Cleveland Heights for hosting us. I introduce myself as a Heights grad, a Heights dad, a teacher, and an advocate for public education. I look at my service on this board as part of that advocacy that I do. As a lifetime resident of Cleveland Heights, I am extremely proud of the work that happens in our public schools. I'm incredibly proud of our teachers who do an amazing job. I'm really, really proud of our students. And we can see the outcomes. We can see $14 million of scholarship offers to a graduating class of around 350 kids during a pandemic. We see the district being recognized by the college boards. We see the district being recognized by the state of Ohio for our pre-K work. There's so much good work happening in this district. I ask for your support on November 2nd for myself, Dan Heintz, and I encourage you to support Malia Lewis and Jody Sorini as well.
Thank you. Next, Charles Drake.
Thank you again for putting on this presentation. Support your teachers, support our teachers. Is that why in the last contract you negotiated, you made them give back their 1% pickup to the STRS contribution, while you made no cuts in those benefits of SERS to the treasurer or the administrator or the superintendent? In every business that I have been involved in, when there is a budget issue coming up, the leaders take the cut before their people do. This is not how a transparent board should operate. Please vote Charles Drake along with Maureen Lynn and Mordechai Rennert. New Voices for chuh.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mario Clopton-Zymler.
Sorry, you and my mic. Thank you for hosting tonight. Sometimes as the sole Black candidate in this election, it feels like I'm fighting between two different factions and not fighting for our kids. It seems to happen more often. The work of the school board requires a good working relationship with colleagues, and I am prepared to work with whoever the voters of Cleveland Heights elect. I have been beyond flattered to hear constituents compliment me on my platform, my qualifications, and my gravitas, but only then to suggest that this isn't the election to take a risk. It is not lost on me that I am the only Black candidate in this election, and there is a segment of our voters who claim that voting for a slate is the safest option. I ask in return, for who is this a safe option? Because choosing to yield to your fears of losing over an election, the most qualified candidate that has run for the seat in more than a decade, is not an example our students need. How can we tell our students to go out into the world and be brave, fight against oppression, and do the right thing, only to have that opportunity and to choose to uphold the status quo? Starting today, a white majority electorate will get to elect 3 board members for a school district with a 71% Black student population. You have the power. Use it to move us forward and demonstrate to our students that real change occurs when we vote for what we want, not against what we fear. Vote Mario first before anyone else and help spread the word.
Mo Lynn, please.
Thanks again for hosting this event. I mean, it is so important that everybody's voice is heard and that everybody, in our community is able to hear from all the candidates. So I sincerely appreciate the opportunity to be here and to have our audience out there. And I know you're going to post this up and they'll be able to watch it, on your website. But I love living in the Heights. I love this community. I want it to be the best it can possibly be. I've called this home. We've moved around a lot and I absolutely love it here. And I want to remain here, and I want to help the schools, and we've been part of this school board to make the schools better for everybody in the community, our students, our teachers, all of our residents, all of our business owners, everybody. This is not about one single entity, it's about the entire community. So I urge you to vote for Chuck Drake, myself, and Mordechai Rennert so we can get true change that is needed in this community. The status quo has been going on for way too long, and it needs to end. Thank you for your vote. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Ms. Sorini.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for holding this forum. I did want to note before I go into my closing statement that the CUP report that they cited is a misleading number for cost per student because it does not take into account the cost to educate special needs students, which we have a higher proportion in our district than most other districts. So my closing statement is, as a proven leader, I want to be reelected to the Board of Education so I can continue my work in advocacy, student achievement, and fiscal responsibility. I'm endorsed by many leaders in the Heights, including State Rep Janine Boyd, Cuyahoga County Council Rep Cheryl Stevens, University Heights Mayor Michael Dillon Brennan, University Heights Mayor Vice Mayor Michelle Weiss, Cleveland Heights City Council members Melody Joy Hart and Mike Unger, University Heights Council member John Rock, former South Euclid Council member Marty Gelfand, and former Cleveland Heights University Heights Board of Education members Ron Register, Stephen Wertheim, and Mark Phillips. Additionally, I'm endorsed by the Matriots and the Cleveland Heights Democrats. You can learn more about my campaign at www.jodi4boe.com. That's Jodi, Jodi, the number 4, boe.com. And now I ask for your vote, and I also ask for your vote for Malia Lewis and Dan Heintz. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This concludes our candidate forum for the Cleveland Heights University Heights Board of Education. I would like to thank all of our volunteers who made this evening possible, to thank all of you for watching this program online, and most especially, I would like to thank the candidates for being here. Don't forget to get your copy of the Voter's Guide through the Heights Observer and to vote on or before November 2nd. Thank you very much, everybody. Good evening.
Yes, thank you, sir.